Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to APA's first webinar for 2018, Social Media, a Powerful Customer Service Tool by Kate vanderVoort. Today, you're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the phone, select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to Kate by typing them into the questions pane on the control panel, and they'll be answered at the end. To give a brief introduction on today's presenter, Kate is the founder and CEO of Take 10 Social and Social Mediology. She has worked with over 3,000 businesses on social media strategy and implementation and has worked with some of Australia's largest companies in just about every industry. She is a sought-after conference speaker and trainer, both in Australia and overseas. Kate has recently been named a Digital Community Champion by the Queensland State Government. She is passionate about helping SMEs understand and implement social media strategy and to do this more efficiently and successfully. I'll now hand you over to Kate to show you how.
Thank you very much, Kate, and welcome everybody. I can't believe we're saying it's the first webinar for the year and it's February already. The year is getting away from us. So I want to jump right on in and talk about these mindsets or these principles that will really help you make social media successful in your business. So social media requires a paradigm shift. You know, gone are the days where we broadcast our message louder and louder in the hope that somebody hears us. And I know that traditional marketing is much more scientific than that. However, you know, we are still, it's probably one of the biggest mistakes I still see on social media is businesses approaching it like it's a traditional form of media. And they are just broadcasting their messages louder and louder in the hope that somebody's going to hear that. So we're going to uncover or explore some of these principles that really turn traditional marketing on its head. And if you don't get these principles, you can waste an enormous amount of time and resource trying to get social media right. And I've been running Social Mediology, my first company now, for more than 9 years. As Kate said, I've worked with over 3,000 businesses. These principles hold true across every single industry. And every business, I think there's one business that I've come across where I needed to amend some of the approach because it was just in the funeral industry and it was a very niche kind of business. Using social media when you're a company that creates joints that get recycled
Sorry, everyone, the volume has just gone. We're just working on it. It won't be too long.
I've just gone, you can't hear me. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Kate. It's kind of after about a minute or so.
Okay, so you've got me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I'm hoping everybody else can as well. If someone else can just put a comment in there they can hear, that would be great.
Yes, okay. I'm really sorry. So where did you lose me?
It was on the first slide, I think. Yep, people are saying they can hear now. So if you could just go back to the first slide. Sorry.
Okay. So we were talking about social media requiring a paradigm shift.
Yes. Yep, let's start there if that's okay. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what has happened there. So I'll just take it from the top. So social media requires a paradigm shift. Gone are the days where we just market our business and shout louder and louder and push out our key marketing messages in the hope that the right people are going to hear us. And I was just saying that I know traditional marketing is more scientific than that, but a lot of people are still using those traditional approaches on social media and it just doesn't work. We have to change the way that we look at communication. We have to change the way that we look at building community. We have to change the way that we look at building relationship with our customers. And social media is a really powerful tool to be able to do that. But an enormous amount of time and money can be wasted unless you understand these fundamental principles and apply them to your business. So the principles that we're going to go through apply across every industry, across every business type. I was saying just, excuse me, I was saying just before that I think there's one business that I can think of over the last 9 years that I've been doing this, where these principles needed to be somewhat adapted, and that was a business that sold parts after someone passed away. They were in the funeral industry. After someone passed away, if that person had a knee replacement, for example, they were reselling those parts. So their social media strategy and their approach needed to be a little bit different. But these principles apply to every single business across the 3,000 or more that I've worked with. So the first principle that I want to talk about is that your customers, your clients, your members, your staff, your referral sources, your distributors, your suppliers, any stakeholder that is related to your business leads you to more people like them on social media. So by the very nature of social media, we tend to be connected to people like ourselves. So if you're talking about LinkedIn, people tend to be connected to people in a similar industry, a similar position, a similar professional background, a similar pay category. So if you know who your ideal target audience are and you can connect with them and deliver value to them, they lead you to more people like them. On other platforms like Facebook and the more social type platforms, you know, if I'm your ideal target audience and I'm a 40-ish-year-old woman, I have 2 children under 4, I live in Brisbane, but I grew up and studied and worked in Sydney for most of my adult life. I live just outside of Brisbane. So if I'm a business owner, I own 2 businesses. So if I'm in any way, shape or form your ideal customer, if you can deliver value to me, I lead you to more people like me. So I'm connected with other mothers. I'm connected with people who live in my local community because I do a lot of community work. I'm connected to people that I studied with. So if you can identify who your key audience are and their exact demographics and locate them on social media, by building community with those people and delivering value to those people, they lead you to more people like them. Now, if you happen to have really big ad budgets, you don't really need to focus as much on this. However, where a lot of marketing has shifted to is the big kind of ads and funnels model. Now, whilst that absolutely, you know, I implement that in my own business, so I absolutely understand the value of that. However, our clients who are still doing exceptionally well on social media with organic reach are focused really heavily on generating good quality content that delivers value and builds community, and they are still seeing great organic reach without big ad budgets. So you want to be doing a combination of both. But I have businesses who say to me, Kate, I want to use social media to target new audiences. I don't want to muddy the waters with my current clients. And it's a very, very big mistake. You want to go for the low-hanging fruit. You want to connect with the people who care about your business. You want to connect with the people who already know who you are, who like what you do, who trust you as a company. You've potentially heard it said, it's one of the catchphrases in our industry is that people buy from those that they know, like, and trust. And so using social media allows you to do that. It allows you to build that relationship. But you want to connect with those who are closest to your business, because if you can deliver value to them, they lead you to more people like them. Now, social media opens the windows and the doors into your business, and it allows you to tell your story. So this is something that some businesses find quite confronting. Often we, and I'm going to talk a bit about this a little later in the webinar, but often we're just really used to putting forward our corporate facade. And whilst we might have a bricks and mortar store and we let people come to the front counter, we tend to not let people into our business beyond the facade that we've built. And if that's the approach that you take on social media, you miss so much of the opportunity that is available to you. So your role as a business is to show people who you are, who does what you do, how do they do what they do, why do you do what they do. It's about opening those doors and showing the behind the scenes of your business, showing the humans in your business. People are on social media to connect with people. They are not there to connect with brands. So the more that you can show the human side and demonstrate your credibility and your professionalism by being open and authentic and showing your business, the better you will do on social media. Now, you can't completely control your message on social media. We all know that. What you can control is what you say, when you say it, and which platforms you say it on. But once you've said whatever you're saying, whether people like it, don't like it, chop it up and turn it into a meme, take a screenshot and reshare it somewhere else, pin it, post it, retweet it, recommend it, all of that is completely beyond your control. But there's a whole lot more to this than just that surface level that I was just mentioning. And that is, often in business, we try and control what happens so much on social media that we lose all benefit of reach. So some examples about how that plays out in business. Sometimes, and I'm sure none of you would be in this boat, but sometimes I have people say to me, Kate, we really want to make the most of social media, but we just don't have time to respond or engage in all that conversation. So we want to shut down comments. And my answer to that is don't even bother. Don't even go there unless you're willing to let go of some of that control, or people say, we're worried people are going to say the wrong thing about us, so we're going to shut down reviews. And that's a very legitimate choice that a business can make. But by shutting down reviews, if you're actually delivering good quality service and value to people, you lose the opportunity of the reach that those reviews give to your business. This plays out in so many different ways, particularly around intellectual property. And I'm sure that that's a concern for some of the companies that might be on the webinar. But intellectual property, copyright, ownership, particularly consultants or professional services often say to me, but Kate, if I give everything away for free on social media, they're not going to come buy from me. And the opposite is actually true. If you're generous with what you know and you use content in a way that answers people's biggest questions or concerns, that's how people find you, is through your content. So you don't want to hold back and not share what you know because you're afraid that people won't come to you. By sharing what you know and being generous and being open and authentic on social media, that's the kind of content that people find and engage with and therefore buy from your business. Again, this plays out in so many different ways, but there are just some examples. So when you're developing your social media strategy or when you're looking at your approach for social media, just check in every now and then and see where you're trying to control things, and just understand that by trying to control things, trying to shut things down, trying to sanitize it and make it all look professional and perfect for your business, you're probably not getting any of the reach that's actually going to benefit you. Now, you want to get your brand out of the middle of the conversation. And I love saying that in some contexts, and particularly with people that work in the promotional product space. I imagine, given that that's the focus of what you do, that this one might have you scratching your head a bit. But as I said before, people are on social media to connect with people. They're not there to connect with brands. They don't care about your style guide and your colors and your key corporate messaging. They really don't care. I don't mean to be harsh, but they do not care. I'm not saying for a second that you want to throw your brand out of the window, because we've all invested a huge amount of time in, developing brand. That's an important asset to our business. However, you don't want to lead with that in social media. And what a lot of businesses do is they're so busy putting their logo all over everything to control it that people don't share their content. And research shows that unbranded content travels far further than branded content does on social media. So by all means, brand your key promotional content. But the reality is nowadays your key promotional content, you should be paying for that to be seen, and you need to pay for that to be seen. So much has changed in social media, particularly recently, even just in the last couple of weeks. There is no doubt that you need to pay to have your key marketing messages seen. But all of your other content that's around adding value, answering questions, engaging, really genuinely getting to know your communities, keep your logos off it, keep your brand out of the middle of the conversation, and just connect with people as human beings. And I'm going to share this with you at the end of the webinar, but there's a really powerful exercise around understanding your customer avatar, and knowing where it is that they hang out on social media is the first step to making sure that you don't waste your time on social media. And the exercise that I encourage all of you to do, which I'll give you the link for the handout afterwards, really helps you to give a name and a face to your avatar or your ideal customer. And what I encourage clients to do, or people that do our courses, I really encourage them that when they're crafting their content, imagine that you're speaking directly to Linda across the table over a coffee. Imagine that you're speaking directly to Mark in an office having a conversation about your business. Because often the way that we brand and craft our content is so corporate and so branded that it just misses the mark, and people don't care. People do not engage with that kind of content on social media anymore. But there's another element to this. If you can get your brand out of the middle of the conversation and actually take it a step further and build community, that is when you really start to see the value of social media. So my favorite example of this, I did some work a couple of years ago with a tech company, and they brought me in to work with their customer service team on how to use social media as a customer service tool, how to, and the methodology that we ended up choosing was to use a Facebook group. And I did a 6-month contract with them, which was all about working with their customer service team to help them really embrace and change their mindsets, change their systems and their processes. And it was really a big culture change for this business, so that they could start addressing customer service issues through Facebook in particular. And I had a phone call a couple of months after the contract ended, and it was from the head of customer service, and he rang and said, Kate, I've just come out of a senior management meeting and you're not very popular right now. I went dead silent, not the kind of phone call, that I get often, nor that I'm comfortable with. And I said, Mark, so tell me what's going on. And he said, well, look, we've got our Facebook group. We have a thriving community. There's thousands of people in it, but we have a problem. So what's the problem? And he said, our community, the people in the group are answering each other's questions before our customer service team has a chance to answer them. So I paused. I said, and that's a problem because, and we had a good conversation, and there was a bit more education that needed to happen, but how fantastic that their community cared enough about their product to actually answer each other's questions and to help each other out. Now, of course, the customer service team have a responsibility to make sure that the answers are accurate and that people are behaving appropriately and treating each other with respect, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, they can add a huge amount of value from a technical support perspective. But a lot of the troubleshooting kind of stuff that members could help each other out with, what we had effectively done for that company was build a thriving community of customers who cared enough to connect with each other. So that's the end goal. If you can build that around your business, you have a group of digital ambassadors who are advocating on your behalf. But the first step is to get your brand out of the middle of the conversation. Now, you need to step outside of yourself as the business and really ask, what do your customers want from you? What do they really want? Now, often in business, we're so caught up in what we think they want that we forget, firstly, to ask, but secondly, we miss a lot of the low-hanging fruit. So there's a couple of ways to look at this. I really believe that the future of online and digital marketing is understanding the number one challenge or issue or problem that your customer has that you have a solution for. And if you can truly understand what that pain point is, if you can identify the language they use to describe that, if you can identify where they go to find information about that, and if you can identify what kind of information gets them to a resolution quicker than anybody else, that is how to make online, digital, social media marketing work for your business. So we now, with everybody that we work with, whether it's online or as a customer, investigate, what's the single biggest challenge that you're having with implementing social media in your business? If I can understand what that challenge is, I can know how to best serve that customer. So sometimes we're so busy broadcasting and marketing our stuff that we forget to ask those important questions. I was doing some work with an accounting firm in Sydney. They were actually my accountant before I moved up to Queensland. And they were pretty cutting edge. This was a couple of years ago now. They were pretty cutting edge, and they put out an e-newsletter every month that had a little talking head. It was a caricature of their CEO. And it was great. It was nifty. It was different. It was cute. But what he was talking about was the changes that the tax office made that month. And I said to him, John, I pay you to know what changes the tax office made this month. I actually don't care. As a small business owner, you have a huge amount of knowledge and wealth of information that you can share with me, and it's not about the changes the tax office made. So we did a whole piece of work with them around across their staff. I think they had 10 or 15 staff. What were their knowledge areas? What tips, hints, pieces of content could they be creating that would add value to their small business customers? So they started creating content on things like how to hire and retain good quality staff, how to streamline your payroll processes, how to get ready for end of year financial time. And they did education series that educated their customers and their clients on how to better manage their finances so that the accountants had more work to do. So you want to really understand, and often we're so focused on the middle of the onion, I kind of see it as layers, that we miss those next layers that are beyond that. And often that's where we can start to see reach and influence that exposes us to new audiences. So really understanding what they want from you rather than what you think they want from you is definitely the first step to a solid content strategy. I heard someone give a great example of this at a conference recently. So the NRMA in New South Wales, they take all of the questions that come into their call centre and they turn it into social media or digital content. So if you think about what are all of the questions, and don't just list them as an FAQ sheet on your website that's buried somewhere that, you know, people won't find, turn it into living, breathing content. So they know that people probably went to Google before they picked up the phone and rang them to ask them the question. But if they can be creating content that firstly people find on Google or secondly people find on social media, then they're answering those questions and leading people into the business through their content. Now, I'm sure this next one is something that you've all heard before. It's not about numbers, it's about quality relationships and engagement. Now, this one's a bit of a double-edged sword because we're human beings and we like to be where other human beings are. So if you go to a Facebook page and 20 people have liked it and it hasn't been posted on for 3 months and no one's commented or liked or engaged with anything, chances are you're not going to feel overly compelled to join. So sometimes we need a strategy to kickstart that community building. And there's a very defined strategy in terms of, putting the pieces in place so that you build that community in a sustainable way. And it's not about buying fans. Now, I'm not saying that you don't do paid ads to increase your community, because that is a very solid way to start building your communities if you're looking at a platform like Facebook. But what you definitely don't want to be doing is going out and buying fans. And there are click farms and fan farms and follower farms. You can go and pay $100 for 10,000 likes on Facebook. But what will happen is that you will completely decimate your social media strategy before you've even started. So a really good example of this, last year I had, I'll loosely call her a competitor because we work in very different ways. But she sent me a private message on Facebook and said, Kate, I've had a look at your website and I've gone and looked at some of your clients, and some of our clients have got a whole lot more likes on Facebook than yours do. I'm just wondering if you'd like our help. I thought that was an interesting approach from someone who is technically a competitor. So I had a look at the 3 links that she'd sent me, and I've changed the business type, but Mr. Smith, the dentist on the Gold Coast, 9,500 likes on Facebook. Fantastic. He must be chock-a-block full of dental clients every day of the week. But you dug a little deeper and there was no content being shared on the page. There was no engagement. As much as 9,500 people in Russia might need a dentist, I can assure you they're not going to come to the Gold Coast to have their dental work done. And it was incredibly obvious. The page was only 3 months old. It was incredibly obvious that those fans had been bought. And Mr. Smith, the dentist on the Gold Coast, will never see one paying customer or patient from that strategy ever. In fact, it may even turn people off. So we've got a client who we don't work with them anymore because they've now, we've trained up all their staff and we've really embedded social media into the business in a way that it's thriving. But we were working with them for quite a number of years. Small restaurant in Sydney, very popular high-end restaurant, but small. And over about 4 or 5 years, they still only had 1,500 fans on Facebook. Now, that might not look like a lot, but every single one of those people had gone into the restaurant. And every time they put out their specials, the engagement went through the roof. They understood their customers, they delivered exactly what they wanted on a regular basis, and they built a thriving community around their business. So you want to focus on quality relationships and engagement. Even if you have a small community, focus on growing that organically through content, through engagement, rather than getting caught up in this never-ending quest for more likes, more followers, because it's not a numbers game. Well, part of it's a numbers game. The ads part of social media is definitely a numbers game. Community building side is much more about having genuinely, people who are genuinely engaged with your business. Now, you need to create content that evokes an emotive response. People respond to content on social media that makes them feel something. So that's a bit tricky when it comes to business, because often what we're sharing is, or what we want to be sharing, doesn't really evoke much of an emotive response at all. And this comes back to that point about understanding your clients and your customers' biggest pain points. If you create content that helps them address those issues in their business or in their life, but in their business, you will be front of mind for them when they need your product. So creating content that makes people feel something is what will elicit a share, a recommendation, a like, a retweet, a repost, a repin, all of those fabulous things that happen when people share your content. But you need to just stop and think, how are people going to feel when they get this content? Because people are pretty lazy now when it comes to social media. Getting engagement really takes something. And you are far better off producing consistent, good quality content on a less frequent basis than you are pushing out volume of content. Everything now across all platforms shows that quality is important, creativity is important, and Facebook now, clearly conversation is important. So if nobody is engaging with your content and having some kind of conversation there, your content and its reach is going to be seriously affected given the latest changes that are happening with Facebook. So you need to be creating content that evokes some kind of an emotive response. What others say about you on social media is far more important than what you say about yourself. Now, this can also be a bit uncomfortable for people, but research shows that 96% of people trust peer-to-peer recommendations over paid advertising. And I'm not just talking about paid advertising in terms of dollars, but anything that you say on social media will still be tainted a little bit with the brush of paid advertising, because people will see it coming from a brand. Now, that's not to say you don't do it, because you still need to be creating that content. But it's the broadcast messaging where you rave about how great you are. That kind of content really doesn't work on social media. But if you can get other people to talk about your brand, your business, your products, your service, that is gold on social media. And so when we're working with clients, we look at when is the peak of people's experience with your business. That's the time that you want to ask them for a review on Facebook. That's the time that you want to ask them for a recommendation on LinkedIn. It's when they feel best. So it might be when your products arrive in their office. Do you follow that up with an email? Put a link in that email that says, we really value your feedback and we'd love to hear what you think of your new products. Please head on over to Facebook, or if you're a sales, if you have a sales role and you're connected with your customers on LinkedIn, please head on over to LinkedIn and leave us a review or a recommendation. Now, only 10% of people might actually do that. But going to a Facebook page, and where Facebook in particular is shifting now, is very much about local content, and it's about recommendations. So you may even start to see as a user, I've certainly seen it on my page, Facebook pushing local businesses to me based on the fact that people I know have recommended them and based on the reviews that have been left. And they're trialing all sorts of things with ads around putting the star review from your business attached to an ad. There are you can now embed your products and services in your content on Facebook. They're really blurring the boundaries between storytelling and marketing and customer service. So if you can get your best customers talking about you on social media, they lead you to more people like them because of that peer-to-peer recommendation. You want to show, not shout. So what I mean by this is, and I've already said it, that a lot of businesses are still broadcasting and shouting louder and louder, hoping that people are going to hear them on social media. But what you want to do is demonstrate what you do. Demonstrate that you know what you're talking about rather than just stating it. So show people. We're doing some work at the moment with a venue, a residential facility, where they run programs Monday to Friday, but they rent out their venue on the weekends. And instead of putting out, marketing messages that say our venue's available for hire, 30 beds, $150 a night, includes 3 meals, what they've started doing is on a Friday afternoon, they'll do a post that welcomes whichever company is coming to stay with them. So it might be, we're really looking forward to welcoming the Westpac leadership team here for the weekend. The chef's in the kitchen cooking a hearty organic soup. The beds are turned down. The blossoms are out in the garden. Whatever that is, but they paint a picture of a warm and welcoming environment. They demonstrate that they have a chef and that it's a nice place for people to stay. They tag the business, which demonstrates the level or the quality of clients that they have. Now, you want to be careful about doing that because you certainly don't want to look like you're hijacking your client's social media. But there are times where that's completely appropriate, not the hijacking, but the mentioning. And so what they're doing is they're demonstrating what it is that they do. Instagram's a pretty hard platform for me to use in my business unless all I do is put out social media tips, and we do a bit of that. But what people want to see from me on social media is, the sunrise as I'm flying out of Brisbane because I'm going to Perth to speak at a conference, and I post a pretty picture and say, taking off from Brisbane to go to Perth and speak about how to manage a social media crisis to the XYZ industry. Really looking forward to a great day. And what I've demonstrated is the kind of conferences that I speak at, that I travel for work, and the kind of content that I deliver to industry bodies. So you want to think about, how do you demonstrate what you do? How do you show people? And it comes back to that storytelling of really opening the windows and the doors to your organization. Now, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see businesses making on social media. So again, seems really obvious. Social media conversations are happening on a public stage for the world to see. We all know that unless you are happy to have it be seen on a billboard or the front page of the national newspaper, don't say it on social media. But this has another dimension to it. So what often happens is, if a customer comes to your social media profiles, what a business generally does, so let's say I'm the customer and I come to your Facebook page and I say, hey, I'm really interested in ordering 10,000 drink bottles with our logo on it. Can you tell me what that costs? Now, what a lot of businesses would do in that situation, thinking that it's good customer service, and in one way it is they'd say, Kate, hi, thanks so much for your message. Very happy to talk to you about your order. Could you please send me a private message with your phone number and I'll give you a call? And so traditional sales tends to be that we try and capture a phone number, we try and capture an email, because if we can get them on our list, if we can get them into our funnel or into our sales cycle, then we can contact them whenever we want to. But the better thing to do when it comes to social media is to actually answer that question publicly. Now, if you don't want to disclose your prices or you can't give a quote without more information, that's fine. But what you want to do is you want to go back and say, Kate, thanks so much for your inquiry. And you want to do it in a timely way, because if you wait a week, chances are I'm asking 3 or 4 other companies the same question. So, you know, those that get in a timely way, people who are looking for information on social media tend to be pretty quick decision makers. So you want to get back to them in a timely way. But you want to say, Kate, thanks so much for your inquiry. We have a range of 10 different water bottles that you might be interested in. The prices start from X number per unit. Our turnaround time's about a week. I'm making this up, so you know, it's about a week. I'd love to talk to you about that in more detail, or potentially send you a sample. I'm going to send you a private message, and if you want to give me your details, I'd love to talk to you about it further. And so if it's on Facebook, you'd click the little, you know, message button underneath their comment so that you do send them a private message as well. But what you've done with that public response is you've used that opportunity to influence other people. And if you take that conversation offline really quickly, thinking it's good quality customer service, you miss the opportunity to influence anybody else that sees that conversation. And Facebook in particular is moving all to being about conversation. So you want to flesh those out publicly rather than shifting it offline really quickly to try and close a sale. So you want to do both, but it's a really big mistake. Some of our biggest companies are still doing this, and you just lose so much opportunity on social media by not answering things publicly. Now, you want to integrate social media into all aspects of your operations in order to succeed. So I kind of alluded to this at the beginning, that often people will want to keep it out to the side of their business and they'll test it, or they say, no, well, I only want to reach new audiences. I don't want to mess up what we've currently got happening with our customers or mess up our systems and processes. By its very nature, it will fail if you have that approach. You know, most of the work that I've done over the 9 years has actually been culture change work. It's been, particularly with large companies, it's been working with them to change the culture enough to embrace these technologies. Because often our systems, our processes, our way of doing things actually hinders the biggest benefits of social media. So, you know, you want to have it in your printed material. You want to have your social media definitely embedded into your website. You want to have prompts and calls to action and invitations for people to join you on social media throughout your business. But the other aspect of this that I think is critically important is what often businesses do is they say, you know, Sam, it is your job to do social media. And they think that because Sam's got social media handled, it's done and dusted. They don't need to worry about it anymore. But the companies and the businesses that excel on social media are those that empower every person in the business to contribute to the social media strategy. I am not talking about giving every person in the business administration rights to your social media profiles. The technical posting of content is a technical skill, and it's actually probably the easier part. Although, you know, with Facebook in particular, a lot of the functionality that rolls out on a consistent basis takes a little bit of getting used to in terms of functionality. But that part is actually far less important than the content creation and the storytelling. So you want to have social media be a standing agenda item on your meeting agenda. You know, if you meet once a week with your staff, have social media be a part of that. What's happening this week? How can we use it on social media? Is there an opportunity for a Facebook Live? Do we have, you know, photos of some of our products being shipped this week? Whatever that is, But each week or each month, whenever your staff meetings are, you want to have this be a standing agenda. Then whoever's responsible for managing social media, you also want them reporting back to the staff so that they understand, why put in the time. We've just implemented a really cool program with a construction, well, what are they? An outdoor landscaping backyard. So they do pergolas and they do sheds and they produce stuff basically that goes in backyards, but they also do that at a bit of a commercial level as well. And they've got 1,000 installers across Australia. Now, those people are going into homes. They've got the opportunity to do before and after shots. They're engaging with customers on a day-to-day basis, but they were never, ever even conscious of the fact that there was a social media strategy, let alone invited to contribute to that. So what they are now doing is they've got a Facebook group that's secret, so only their staff are invited to that. It can't be found publicly. And those installers are encouraged to create content and to put that into the Facebook group. So the marketing team have got a pool of content on a regular basis to be sharing out onto social media. And they've got a little competition that's running. So every month, the piece of content that gets the highest engagement gets a $50 voucher. And at the end of the year, the top performing pieces of content, they do little social media awards. So what they're doing is they're activating their workforce and empowering their staff to contribute content. And there's no way that the marketing team could tell that story in the same way. Now, they've realistically got about 100 of those installers that are creating, maybe if they're lucky, 4 or 5 pieces of content each per year, not just per month. But that still gives them 400 or 500 pieces of content to choose from that they didn't have before. So think about how you can implement some of those strategies to really embed it into the culture of your business. So you want to integrate it, you want to include it rather than having it out to the side and thinking that the responsibility just sits with one person. Now, customers and potential customers come to you through content, but they stay for community. And I've kind of alluded to that throughout the whole webinar, that you want to focus on delivering value, connecting people, building relationship. That community will outride algorithm changes. Now, you don't want to build everything in one place because, as Facebook showed us 2 weeks ago, they can flick a switch and it significantly impacts those that have not done this piece, this community building piece. So invest some time. There's just an enormous amount online at the moment that's about ads and funnels and big and scale and all of that stuff, which absolutely works with digital products. But with physical products and with services, it really requires a different approach. And I'm not saying ads and funnels are not critically important, because they are. But if you don't have this foundation of community building and generating good quality content on a consistent basis that adds value to those communities and helps to strengthen those relationships, then you're really building a house of cards without a strong foundation. So people stay for that sense of community. And at the end of all of that, so it's almost like an emotional bank account. You need to be investing into it, putting into it, and then you ask, what's the behavior that you want to influence? What do you want back from people? Because at the end of the day, we're all in business and we all want a result. So I'm not suggesting that you build happy communities where everybody's, walking around singing "We Are the World." What I'm suggesting is that you focus in on that from a customer service perspective, and then think strategically about how you use that content and work with those communities to move people along the journey to buying your product. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of people overlook with social media is they think they can go and just sell their stuff. And, you know, in some cases they can. But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of work to sell stuff now on social media. So for each, you know, you want to look at your content and break it down into small, bite-sized, digestible, manageable pieces of content that lead people on a journey. Facebook ads is one of the most powerful ways to do that. You know, with remarketing and the audience selection and targeting that's available within Facebook is the most powerful marketing that's available on the planet today. But one of the trends that I'm seeing is hyper-personalization is critically important. So if you have a number of different avatars, you want to find a way that you deliver what people need to them based on their biggest challenge, not based on you wanting to market your whole business. So while you do want to think about what's the behavior that you want to influence, you want to lead people on that journey rather than just trying to sell them something. So I'm going to stop for a moment. I think there are some questions that have come through. So I'm going to stop for a moment and then I'll talk just briefly about a resource that I want to make available to you that will help you work through some of these principles and concepts that we've been talking about. So are there some questions there, Kate?
Yes, we do have a couple. You did touch on how to get around this earlier. The first question is, if a potential client asks how much a product is it advisable to answer in public? What if a competitor is also part of the community and contacts the potential client directly and gives them a much better deal?
So that is a really good question, and I imagine is a really good, is a very real possibility for some of you on the webinar, if not all of you. And I don't think there's a right or wrong or a black and white answer. So I'll look at it from a couple of different perspectives. That is one of those things that you need to understand your risk tolerance or how far you're willing to go with social media. But it is one of those things that if you try and control the conversation too much, you risk losing that customer anyway. And you also lose the ability for other people to see that conversation. So if declaring your prices is not the right strategy for your business, you need to make that decision. So I'm not saying there is never a one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to social media. You know, there are so many different nuances that play out when the rubber hits the road. But if I'm coming to you and asking a very direct question, I think there are ways that you can respond to me without jeopardizing your sale. And at the end of the day, if businesses are using those strategies, you know, I don't think that it's appreciated by consumers now. People want authenticity. People want, and I understand they want low prices, and you're always going to get some customers that will just go for the lowest price. You're going to face that whether they call you or email you. But I would just focus on being such a great company that delivers value that it's a no-brainer for people to buy from you rather than a cheaper option, because what they get from you is so much better. So I hope that answers your question. And if disclosing your prices publicly is not an appropriate strategy for your business, still take the message in that around fleshing out those conversations in a way that doesn't jeopardize the sale. But I am, you know, I've worked with some pretty big companies who say none of our staff can be on LinkedIn because we don't want them to take our customers and clients with them when they leave. And I just say, that's fine. If that's a business decision that you want to make, absolutely rest easy with that decision. But know that what you're doing is losing the opportunity to use what is a very powerful tool to build relationship and you know, focus on being a great company that people connect with beyond just the individuals in the company. So I hope that answers your question, but I don't think there's a right or wrong answer in that. It's about what is most appropriate for each business. And I think it reflects poorly on companies that still use a lot of those old slimy sales tactics. But maybe that's something that happens a lot in your industry. I'm seeing a whole lot less of that than used to be. So anyway, I hope that answers the question.
The second question is, do you have a recommendation on how to approach content when our customers are so diverse in their needs? For example, government departments have different needs to event coordinators and different, again, to banks or schools. I worry that the content then appears to be too varied and the different audiences lose interest. It feels like we need segmented groups so the content is still relevant to the different audiences.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really valid question, Carol, and a lot of people will be in this situation where they have a variety of customer types. I guess what I'd say about that is look for the commonalities in their challenge. So why are they coming to you? Do they struggle to get good design done for their products? Do they need a fast turnaround? I'm just making this up. But what are the common challenges that your audiences face that you can create content about? And then, in that situation, you can do highly targeted advertising where you can create a content piece as a sponsored piece of content that is only shown to event coordinators as opposed to people in government. So being able to, and that's where the whole funnel part does get activated, because what you want to do is create content that leads people to particular pages on your website. So if you've got a checklist, an event checklist about, what kind of promotional products you might need for your next event, as opposed to a fundraising product pack for schools, you want to advertise those and have people land on your website. And if you've got the Facebook pixel installed on your website, you can then retarget all of those people. Or you can create videos that speak just to those audiences and then retarget the people that watch those videos. So I would keep your industry targeting or your audience targeting and content around that for paid ads, and focus your organic content on addressing the biggest needs that your customers have. And there tends to be quite a lot of overlap between your avatars or your customers.
Okay, another question has just come through. For an SME that doesn't have the marketing budget or internal resources to handle marketing and social media, what do you recommend to allow them to manage a social media program or calendar from a resource perspective?
That's challenging, Adrian, because you either need people and time or you need budget. And ideally, you have a combination of both. In my experience, outsourcing your social media, and the tendency for SMEs with small budgets is to want to offshore it, and it just doesn't work. A person who is not across what is happening in your business cannot tell an authentic story about your business that helps you to stand out from everybody else. So what I would suggest is that you find ways to embed it into your day-to-day. There are so many different strategies that you can use to do that. We've got hundreds of tools and strategies and processes and worksheets. I'm going to give some of them to you at the end of this webinar that will really help you just break it down to what's manageable. As I said, you are much better off having consistent, good quality content rather than having to look at volume. So even if you did 3 or 4 posts a week on Facebook that showed the inside workings of your business and that was something that was interesting and engaging, it's better than doing nothing. Or the only other answer to this question is do nothing. But then you're reliant on whatever's working for you now. And, it may be that you don't need social media, but social media is not free and social media is not easy. You don't flick a switch and suddenly thousands of people are banging at your door. Social media takes a solid strategic approach. Now, it doesn't have to be, I know, overwhelm, and people struggle with this in a really big way, but it doesn't have to be huge and overwhelming. You can break that down into bite-sized pieces. And again, if you've got a couple of staff and you can empower a couple of people to be creating content and aggregate that content from across the business, then you can tell an all right story. And what you might find, Adrian, is that social media starts to deliver business for you that makes it a no-brainer to have an ad budget, makes it a no-brainer to, invest in that resource. But I'm a pretty firm believer. There are definitely aspects that can be outsourced. So things like graphic design, creation of, your core marketing materials, even things like quotes and hints and tips and facts and that kind of engaging content, that kind of stuff can be outsourced and can be offshored if that is what you need to do. But don't offshore or outsource the core voice of your business, because it just won't work. It'll be a complete waste of your time. So again, no simple answer for you, Adrian. I'm sorry, but it is, there is no one size fits all that works in social media. It's very much about finding what works for your business and what's manageable for your business.
Okay, next question is, do you recommend that a business should be across all social media platforms or just target your social media to one or two?
I definitely do not recommend that you should be on all social media platforms unless you have a social media team. Getting social media right takes work. Doing it well is time consuming, and it generally does require an ad budget that goes alongside the rest of your strategy. And if you're on every platform and you're a small business, you just can't do all of them well. Not only that, your customer avatar is not on every social media platform. And I'm probably not very popular saying this, and I'm kind of speaking against a lot of people in my industry at the moment about this. Facebook's not going anywhere. I don't care what crisis and drama everyone's freaking out about in terms of algorithm changes in Facebook land. Facebook's not going anywhere. They have so deeply ingrained themselves in our society that getting rid of Facebook or having a competitor that has any chance of knocking Facebook off, even if they lost 50% of their users, they hold so much data about their users. They know their users better than their users know themselves. And I know we're all users. They have the information they have on us is incredible. So Facebook is generally the one that I think that businesses can get the most value from, but it's also the most challenging for them to make work. The second thing is that, Snapchat, Twitter, unless you know that your target audience is there and you've got a defined strategy that you are focused on, they tend to be a waste of time unless you have a team to manage that. So, in your industry, and I thought about this long and hard before this webinar, I really think there are two platforms, maybe three, but two that you need to focus on, and that's LinkedIn and Facebook. Now, Instagram is an interesting one at the moment. But if you're in events, if you're in any kind of industry that has lots of aspirational, great quality imagery that excites people and that people, yearn for and wish for, then maybe Instagram would be a solid part of your strategy. But I wouldn't spread yourself too thin.
Okay, next question is, we had a client give us an amazing review on Facebook. Do we reply and say, thank you, we love working with you, and what else do we need to add? Or take it as an opportunity to post what we did for them?
Jane, I think both is the answer to that. So absolutely you want to thank them. If it's appropriate for you to post what you did, then I would, use that opportunity, but don't make it look too promotional. With reviews, you want that to be a really sincere, that person thanked you, said your product was awesome, your service was awesome, and you are just being appreciative of receiving that review. you know, one strategy that we're starting to roll out with a couple of our clients is that when we get those amazing reviews, we actually contact them and ask them if they're willing to do a video review. I was reading a great case study the other day, and I can't remember the name of the company, so it's a terrible example, but company in the US, and it wasn't FedEx, but it was a similar type of company. And what they did was send $70 video cameras, little blogging video cameras, to their top 100 customers. And they asked them, they said, this is a gift from us. We'd love you to have it. Would you please turn the camera on yourself and tell us what you think about our company? It was a little more strategic than that, but that was the gist of what they were doing. And what they got back was, I think it was 62 videos out of those 100 clients. And they got 62 video testimonials out of that. Now, for a company, you know, it's not a massive outlay when you look at the value that they can derive from that. So rather than trying to publicly, the words that are coming to my mind are not appropriate. You don't want to show off. You don't want to say, oh, thanks for the thanks, and this is what we did for you. But if it feels natural, if it feels like a natural part of the conversation, then by all means do that. But maybe look at how you can repurpose that, or how you can take that a step further and get an even more powerful testimonial or review from them.
That's it for the questions, I think.
All righty. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being so attentive. I have just released a new guide called From Stress to Success on Social Media. I'm selling it for $27, but I'm going to give everybody on the webinar a copy of it. So Kate's going to share the link into the chat box, but it's bit.ly/APA gift. You need to use all of the caps in that. But that's got a customer avatar worksheet. It's got our favorite content tools. It's got optimization tips for all the key platforms. So it's a bit of a jumpstart 10-step action plan. When you go to that link, there's a couple of quick questions, because I want to tell you which I think is the first step that you really need to focus on. So this is a really good example of what I'm talking about, of how do you tailor what it is that you're delivering to people so that they get what they need in the moment rather than what I think you need. So please accept that gift from me. It's been great connecting with you all on here, and thank you for being so attentive and engaged in the webinar. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, Kate. That was fantastic. If you do have any other questions for Kate, her details are on the screen. And don't forget about the free gift that's there. It is in the chat box on the screen as well, and it will be on tomorrow's email if you missed it. Tomorrow in the email, you'll also receive a link to view the recording and to view the slides. So on behalf of Kate and APA, thank you for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.